with the rise of AI and the rise of technology, whatever your input is at the bottom is going to come out maximized at the top. If we're not thinking about the problems at an input level and we're not thinking about the consumers who are most in need of these tools and these products, what you're going to get is exponential at scale.
Most conversations about financial health in this country start in the wrong place. They start with balances, credit scores, whether someone has an account. But what if financial health actually starts before the account, before the moment someone ever shows up in your system? Because right now we're living in this strange contradiction. The macro story says things are strong, low unemployment, steady growth. But when you zoom in on households, the picture gets a lot more fragile. Cash flow is tight, buffers are thin, and for a lot of people, access to the financial system is partial, inconsistent, or quietly breaking down. So the question isn't just, are people banked? It's, can they actually use the system in a way that creates stability? Today, we're going to push past the surface metrics and get into what financial health really looks like on the ground, where access gaps show up, how friction becomes a tax on the most vulnerable, why so many people are forced to build workarounds just to function. And we're doing that with someone who spent a lot of time on the ground, operating right at that intersection of payments, access, and real-world behavior. Robyn Burkinshaw is the CEO of BlytzPay, a platform focused on helping lenders and servicers meet customers where they are, like literally where they are, especially when it comes to payments, communication, and staying engaged in the moments that are often financially fragile. This episode is powered by US Bank and recorded live at the University of Utah's FinTech Exchange. Robyn Burkinshaw, CEO of BlytzPay, thank you for joining me on one of my always favorite topics, well, maybe one of my least favorite topics because we're still talking about it, financial wellness, financial health. And I want to start with your read on, right now it's very easy to say, hey, stock market is hitting record highs. You know, we're seeing this growth in a lot of areas, but there's always seems to be this disconnect between economic growth, especially capital market growth, and what people on the ground are experiencing. And given, we don't often think of payments being ground zero for a lot of how people are interacting with the economy and their financial health. What are you seeing in terms of what is the true state of financial health in the United States?
So we're focused at Blitz on the consumers who are typically and traditionally known as subprime consumers.
Okay.
What you're seeing reflected in the market is not what you're seeing reflected on Main Street. There have been a number of challenges as of late, and so it's not reflective. 30% of people are below the poverty line, at or below the poverty line, and they don't stay there. We don't stay below the poverty line, but we bump up and come down and bump up and come down. And that's not reflected in all of the amazing reporting that we're seeing about the state of the economy. It's just not reality in these subprime markets.
So we often think of that underbanked as being the unbanked, right? Like that bottom, like they don't have a bank account. They're maybe an immigrant or like the working poor, but it feels like there's an invisible class in the middle that we sometimes gloss over, that we wouldn't think of those that are like bouncing off of the poverty line. But I'm guessing you see that in payments and how they make payments.
So in Maslow's hierarchy of needs in the year 2026, the first thing a consumer is going to pay is what?
Mortgage or healthcare or food? Food. Food.
It's their cell phone.
No. Cell phone is first?
Yeah, cell phone's first. What's the second thing?
I don't know. You just blew my mind on cell phone first, but I can see it.
Come on, that makes sense.
It does make sense. Tell me it's like your cable subscription or your Hulu and Netflix.
It's your car.
It's your car.
It's your ability to make a living.
Okay.
So when we're thinking about payments, you're thinking about, look, everybody's talking about all of the progression in payments and all the progression in financial services and digital financial services. And all that's doing in the 25% of American consumers who are considered to be unbanked and underbanked is making that chasm bigger. We've architected a financial system for consumers who have regular pay cycles, and then we blame consumers who don't have regular pay cycles, and we punish them for not.
Yeah.
The consumer is blamed for not having a traditional pay cycle, and so you've got some real issues in payments. What we see is the average American consumer is going to pay between 4 and 6 bills a month.
Okay.
Wherever you fall on the socioeconomic spectrum, you're going to pay your water bill, you're going to pay your utilities, you're going to pay typically insurance, you're going to pay your car payment, you're going to pay some sort of living expense, and a couple of other, typically a credit card. What you're seeing is payments and collections become one.
Okay, say more about that.
Yeah, so the typical collection cycle, the punishment for not doing the thing that you were supposed to do because you weren't architected for the system that works for you. The collection cycle is being eliminated by the increase in digital opportunities to reach consumers that are penalized for being in a system that doesn't meet their needs.
So was it somewhere I expected to go with this? Does earned wage access help or hurt in the longer term in terms of helping break this cycle out of the every 2-week paycheck?
I think it's all relevant to cost.
Okay.
If I've got access to payment cycles that are different, and I've got reasonable access, if I've got an overdraft protection,
Yep.
I can float. But if overdraft protection isn't there, or if it's so costly that I'm priced out of that scenario, access exists.
Yep.
The question is cost of access.
And that is one of the astounding things, that it's very easy to put people into the buckets of this. And I was working with a bank and studying this when Dodd-Frank and some of the caps on overdrafts came in. And one of the unexpected outcomes that I get to put in surprise, what do you think one of the number one sources of end-of-the-month overdrafts are? I get to put you on the spot, not just you, for me.
Sources of end of month.
End of month. If you look specifically, people who overdraft end of month, what's one of the number one causes for that?
Waiting on Social Security.
You know your payments well, but it is seniors paying for medication while waiting for Social Security. And so I think to your macro point, we've built in a cost, a penalty to them because they know the money is coming, but the cost of accessing that money because they have a health-driven need is to actually pay the overdraft fee attached to that.
We have built systems that expect people to succeed and punish them when they fail. The systems are designed for this type of consumer. And with all of the inclusion and all of the things that we're talking about, we've got technology for days and days and days. We should absolutely be able to build technology that addresses this consumer. It's not rocket science. It's just a little bit of creative.
So why don't we? You've got so many great stories. Where are the other unexpected pockets where there is friction that technology can solve it, but we haven't necessarily thought through all of the ways it flows?
I'll give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, we were in Alabama meeting so we're in the deep subprime auto lending space, and this company has deep subprime auto lending on one side, and they've got property management on the other. So he owns about 400 homes, and he's got about 500 or 600 cars that are on the road, crossover. So there's a lot of crossover in those consumers. That consumer is typically the same consumer. Once a month, the majority of those renters are going to drive to his office in Montgomery 45 minutes to put cash in a machine,
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, talk about, especially with where gas prices are now and wear and tear on that car, because I'm guessing most of these are not the fuel efficient, running top of the line. Like, there is a hidden cost, not just of time.
In this particular industry, the cars are typically underwritten for their ability to go the distance and be repossessed and then resold and then repossessed and resold or repossessed and resold. When you have an absence of credit or you have a poor credit file and you're underwriting based on risk, a lot of the risk analysis is on the vehicle. And so it's interesting to see what that cost is. But we would never think of driving to make a rent payment or to make a house payment. I'm going to push a button or it's going to be on automatic. It's going to be on automatic withdrawal. To see consumers line up behind a kiosk in the year 2026 is bananas to me.
And is the driver, because it's cash based, they couldn't make an electronic payment because they're not regularly banked? Like, how could we solve this technologically?
In my humble opinion, I'm going to send you a text. You're going to choose your payment method, which could be multi-tender, which could be cash, which could be whatever that is. And I'm going to reach you where you are and give you the ability to be able to pay.
Literally reach you physically where you are with the means by which you want to pay. So the intersection of where you are.
The intersection of where you are. And that's not novel. Everybody has a cell phone.
Your number one payment, as I've just learned.
Number one payment in the United States is going to be the first thing that people are going to pay is their cell phone. So reach people where they are, give them access. And it's stuff like the multi-tender.
Okay.
30% of collections is spent cashiering. 30% of a collector's time is spent cashiering. I've got a $300 car payment today. I call Jason. I say, Jason, hey, I've got my car payment today, but I've got it on 3 different cards. What happens to the next 30 minutes of your life? Stop.
So there's also this tax on time.
There's tax.
Like that is a repeated theme here of not only are the people who can least afford it, they least probably can afford the time, because I would guess a lot of these are also hourly workers.
20% of the payments that we see at BlytzPay are made between the hours of 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. Time tax is not just time in I'm going to drive to the kiosk to make a payment. It's when it's convenient for me. If I'm going to drive to the kiosk and the office is closed, I can't make a payment.
Yeah.
It's getting out of people's way. We talk about it as shut up and take my money. If I have to talk to you, if I have to have a conversation, if I don't have an easy ability to be able to interact and engage with you, we're not paying attention to what the trends are suggesting, and we're not paying attention to the needs of that particular.
So what are the other trends that are hidden? Because already for someone, I think it would talk quite a bit about financial health and wellness. What are these other trends that you see that we're missing, and the true state of what is the state of financial wellness that we're missing? Because the time tax is a new one that I hadn't spent as much time thinking about as I should.
So a couple of months ago, early fall, we organized a day of the unbanked, and we took 5 groups and we wrote each one of those groups a paycheck, and their job was go pay these bills. Go pay your cell phone bill, go pay your water bill, go pay your car payment. We had Abby McLennan from the Fed. We had some academics. We had a big group of people. And on average, it took them 2 hours to cash a check. This isn't, we're not talking about the actual physical cost, just the time tax on these consumers. It was horrendous. If you're a Spanish speaker, if you're, there are a myriad of consumers that fall into this. Again, 25% of American consumers are said to be unbanked or underbanked. So if it takes me 2 hours and then on top of that up to 5% to cash a check, okay, I've got a digital form of payment, I've got a check, I've got to cash that check, and I've got to digitize it. 5%, then I've got an average of 4 to 6 bills that I've got to go pay, which is another, call it $5 a piece. By the time I buy a prepaid card, load that prepaid card, make those payments, the time tax as well as it's punitive.
Yeah.
We're setting people up to fail.
So I'll be honest, I'm kind of sick of talking about this, right? For as long as I can remember back to my days in student lending in the early 2000s, we've talked about this as an issue, and it's a systemic issue. Why aren't we actually seeing it addressed? Right? Like, there have been proposals. We talk about, financial literacy, which I have a whole other rant on why literacy doesn't work. I'm sure you do too. But why systemically are we not actually it doesn't feel like we're making the progress we should.
I'm going to say this carefully. It's not where the money is. It's not where the money is. It's not a sexy, these are people who are struggling paycheck to paycheck. These are people who are working 3 jobs to try and support a family in wage. First of all, when you approach somebody with this problem, if you're in the 75% that's banked, nobody recognizes that cashing a check is a problem. It just gets deposited into my bank account, and then I push the button and pay my bills. I think it's, number one, a cost issue, and number two, I think it's an awareness issue. I don't think people really understand how pervasive this is unless you've actually experienced or seen it with somebody in your family or adjacent.
So do we need to take people's access to financial services away for a week or for a month to get them cognizant of the pain?
It'd be interesting.
In the aggregate, though, this is a huge segment, right? And it's a very, not maybe on unit economics profitable unless you turn the lens and say technologically we can do things differently. But it feels like one of the biggest problems is we always find ways to extract more rents from this as a population, right? Whether it's buy now, pay later, or, early wage access becoming a digital version of payday lending in some cases. How do we begin to crack the nut? If you could wave your wand, what is the first thing that we begin to change that begins to unwind this as a problem?
I think we have the technology, we lack the ability, we lack the understanding, and I think we lack the drive. I don't think there is a real realization of the significance of that population and that there is opportunity to make their lives better. It's been relegated to check cashers and high interest rate lenders and buy now, pay laters. We have the technology to make it's a risk question, right? The reason that you pay a higher interest rate is because there's some sort of additional risk. If I'm going to lend you this, lend you this $10,000, what is my ability to get that paid back? And so there's a higher premium on that. The premium can be there, but it from a punitive perspective, married with technology, there are better ways to do it. There are better opportunities. There's better functionality than we're willing to put in market.
So how do we design better products here if the experience for those who are designing products here, it is not, what their users need? How do we actually get into that? I loved your idea of like the day in the life of the underbanked. What are some other things you've seen that really help the designers of products understand the true challenges there?
We send our product people to sit in the collections center on the other end of the line with, these consumers who are struggling day in and day out to hear and see what their problems are.
Are there any stories that come out of that stick with you that like, this is the thing you would share that people need to understand?
If I've got 6 bills and I've got money for 3, the way that these consumers are often managing that, their prepaid cards. So the average unbanked or underbanked consumer is going to manage 4 prepaid cards at a time.
Okay.
4 prepaid cards at a time. And it's access. If I've got money here and I've got money here and I've got money here, this bill I'm going to pay here because then they can't take more than I have. And I still have money for different bills.
So I'm creating pools. The friction is my benefit. I'm using friction to my advantage.
That's exactly right. Or I turn my prepaid card on and off.
So intentionally letting bills bounce off because I need to preserve capital.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Chime is working in the unbanked world. They've got a different risk profile. Chime is just bigger than US Bank at this point. Those are wild statistics. That is the consumer that actually needs that assistance.
And that's what I find interesting. Back to people misunderstanding the mindset. When I hear, like before Chime was getting ready to go public, people saying, oh, Chase wants to buy Chime or they should buy Chime or US Bank. I'm like, well, you don't really want those customers. Then I caught myself and realized I'm like, it's actually good Chime exists because the big banks, that isn't who they serve. You had to build an entirely different company around how do you serve that customer in a way that is still actually profitable.
You're still not doing it. There's still opportunity.
There's still opportunities. So how do we get more of those? In what areas do we need to focus? Is it the account? Is it the bill? Is it the payment? Is there a place to start?
Where we're focusing is the bill and the payment. It's bill pay.
So play that out, 'cause you've done an amazing job of not making it a commercial, but what problem do you as BlytzPay set out to solve? Where is that thing you say, here's the problem, the customer insight that traditional bill pay doesn't solve?
We talk about that. So a couple of things. The first thing we talk about is shut up and take my money. Let me give you an experience that, again, meets you where you are and gives you the ability to pay in a way that's convenient. If you're the biller on the other side, you don't care if somebody pays in the middle of the night. You don't care if they pay in cash. You don't care if they pay with one card. You don't care if they pay with 5 cards. So we talk about it as a digital point of sale.
Okay.
If I'm sitting across from you, I can hand you money. I can hand you a credit card. I can hand you 3 credit cards. It doesn't make any difference.
Here's my gift card.
Here's my gift. Whatever. It doesn't make any difference to the biller. But there's a lot of shame and there's a lot of access. There's a lot of friction blockers from this particular site. So what we're focused on is breaking the box. A lot of technology is designed by people who think they understand a problem, a business problem, a consumer problem, whatever that is. And so we're putting technology in this box. That's the problem with a lot of the legacy technology that exists today.
Okay.
Solving a problem, and then I, as a business, have to fit my problem into that box.
Okay.
If my problem falls outside, then I'm figuring out a different way to solve that problem.
Okay.
For consumers, it's I'm going to put money in 3 different cards so that I can manage, or 4 different cards so that I can manage access to those and control my money. So it's understanding and building, and then being a little creative. There are opportunities to absolutely solve this, and that's what Blitz is doing. We're meeting the consumers where they are. We are speaking in a language that's convenient for them.
Okay.
If English isn't my first language, does it make a difference to the biller? No. But making them feel connected, respected, and valued is something that we are highly focused on, and those are the products that we're developing.
So if we play this out further, we are at record levels of the wealth and income disparity. I think mirroring just before the French Revolution, the disconnect between the wealthiest and the least wealthy here. What do you think happens if we play this out another 5 to 10 years without addressing some of the systemic issues?
With the rise of AI and the rise of technology, whatever your input is at the bottom is going to come out maximized at the top. If we're not thinking about the problems at an input level, and we're not thinking about the consumers who are most in need of these tools and these products, what you're going to get is exponential at scale.
Well, that is both a scary and profound way to end this. But Robyn, I really appreciate you sharing your insights and a lot of new things that I'm taking away from this, especially around the Maslow hierarchy of needs as it relates to 2020. So thank you for sharing.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the time, Jason.